Federal government retirement. With this video, I want to fully explain some of the benefits when you're an employee of the federal government, and then how you can leverage those for your retirement accumulation phase. And then more importantly, when you're getting ready to retire, what's a proper age to retire? What are some different things to be on the lookout for? And then how to avoid the most common mistakes when federal employees do take their retirement and they're leveraging their supplements and all these different features. So first off, one of the things that makes a federal employee unique is they're offered a pension plan. What a pension plan, simply means is that you're working for the federal government for X amount of years, and the longer that you work for them, the higher that your retirement benefits could essentially accrue to. So let's say if you're working for 20 years of service or 25 or 30 years worth of service, you're going to receive X amount of dollars on a monthly basis, which is known as a defined benefit plan. Because you are being a loyal employee to the federal government, they are ultimately creating an account on the back end, and this account is ultimately accruing through their general accounts. And they're saying, okay, when you hit X amount of years of service and you get deemed as retired, we're going to open up this account for you and basically pay you in the form of a monthly income stream, every single month until the day that you pass away, or if you, depend upon which pension feature that you choose, the day that you and your spouse passes away. So there's a couple of different pension options. The good thing about pension plans or pension income is it's a reliable income. It's income that you could utilize when you're no longer working to suffice what your retirement expenses are, and then what they project to be every year going forward. So the opposite side of the coin would be if somebody's working for, let's say, a private company, and they're not offered a pension plan, they're not offered that defined benefit plan where the employer is defining the benefit, and they're saying, okay, it's going to be a defined contribution plan where they're taking a portion of their monies and they're putting it aside in an account. Typically, private companies, they leverage something known as a 401k. That just puts all the risk to the actual employee, and the employee has to decide how to invest those dollars, how to make that bucket grow nice and fat, and then try to pull out, create a type of withdrawal strategy for those, for that large bucket by the time that it hits that retirement stage. So, once again, take a step back. Federal government employees have very good benefits. This is, and it makes it very simple to retire, but there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of, excuse my language, bullshit out there that does not allow somebody to properly retire, or they choose the wrong options that might not be, might not correlate to what their needs are, what their desires are, on what they want to receive in retirement, and it ends up becoming a detriment to their position that they cannot undo. A great opportunity for federal employees is, let's say, if they're in their 50s, in their mid-50s, late 50s, and they say, you know what, I'm done. I'm done with working, and I just want to basically collect. They could go and trigger their pension income stream, which will obviously be income that's coming to them every month, every year to the day that they pass away, them and their spouse passes away. And they could also leverage something known as a Social Security supplement. The benefit of the Social Security supplement is an individual doesn't have to be age 62 to have access to this feature. So ideally, if somebody wants to retire, let's say they're 58 years old, and they understand that Social Security would typically come to them at a minimum age 62, that's the youngest age that somebody could trigger Social Security. By being a federal employee, they may be eligible to receive a Social Security supplement at age 58, age 59, age 60, age 61, and then at age 62, this is when they're triggering their full, or their reduced Social Security benefit at this age 62. So it's going to go from the supplement, and it's going to transfer over to a regular Social Security income payment. So what this does is it's giving them, a bunch of years before they actually hit age 62 of cash flow with that Social Security supplement feature. So it allows individuals to really, it allows them that opportunity to be able to properly retire while they're in their 50s, and then have to wait until and work into their 60s, their 70s. But it really, there's obviously a lot of factors that come into play. You have to, understand what your budgeting analysis is, what your, what your expenses are today, what your expenses will be in retirement, what's everything projected, and then it really just comes down to the math of it. If, let's say, you're receiving pension income streams of $50,000, and you have Social Security and Social Security supplements of an extra $30,000, and this is $80,000 that's coming to you, and your expenses are only $60,000, well then, yeah, you're going to be well ahead of the game. That this is going to make retirement very easy for your situation, because you have continuous cash flows that are coming to you, every month, every year to the day that you pass away or you and your spouse passes away, depending upon how you set that up. The next component, which is really great, is the thrift savings plan. And basically, like I mentioned, the pension plan, this is a defined benefit plan where the employer, hence the federal government, is defining what your actual benefit will be. So they're saying, okay, as long as you're being loyal to us, as long as you're working X amount of years of service, we will go and create this calculation for you to say, okay, if you want to give us this 25 years, 30 years worth of service, we will define exactly what your benefit will be. With the thrift savings plan, what's happening is the employee of the federal government is placing money aside, and they're trying to grow their account like a 401k account. But it's a 401k for federal employees. So it's going to grow with that same sort of calculation with the contributions that the individual is placing in there, the match that the employer, the federal government, is matching them on, and then the rate of return, which is based upon the different investment options that they have through their thrift savings plan. So there's not going to be a lot of investment options. So that's really the distinction between the 401k and the thrift savings plan. But it still gives them this additional bucket that they can leverage for an income play, for a growth play, or a combination of growth and income, when this person retires. Now, you have to be very careful when you plan on retiring, because there's certain features and there's certain strategies that you can leverage the thrift savings plan bucket to leave a portion of dollars in that thrift savings plan before you hit age 60, while the rest of the monies are accruing in some sort of rollover type process to give you a better growth strategy or a better income strategy when you do hit that age 59 and a half. So, and I'll go over how to effectively use these retirement options, towards the end, but just be mindful that you might not be handcuffed to what you originally assumed. So like, as an example, if somebody wanted to retire at age 55 or 56, they can do that. It just really depends upon the math. It really depends upon, how much income that they need to generate in retirement, whether they're able to generate those income streams through the pension and Social Security supplement. If not, how can you create an effective distribution strategy to suffice those needs, to suffice that expense-related gap or that expense-related need, while your rest of your monies are at least being leveraged properly, towards a growth, an investment-related, type structure, or a state or legacy-related need, or a tax-related need. So there's a lot of really neat things that you could do with this, but it's just, making sure that you're mindful of the options available. Other things that individuals have opportunities with the thrift savings plan is in-service withdrawals or in-service rollovers. So let's say if somebody's working for the federal government, they say, hey, I want to retire at age 65. I have monies that I'm placing aside in a thrift savings plan. Well, at age 59 and a half, age 60, this person's eligible for an in-service withdrawal or in-service rollover where they could take the portion of their thrift savings plan and then they could roll it over into an IRA account that's now customized for their exact needs to say, okay, we're either going to trigger some income at age 65 with this IRA, or we're going to trigger a portion of this IRA is going to be for income. The other portion is going to be set up for growth, or you can just set it up for pure growth and just have better investment options than you do with your really handcuffed, a few options that you would have through their savings plan and with those investment choices. So there's a lot of really neat things, but right when somebody hits age 60, that makes them eligible to do an in-service withdrawal or in-service rollover. Same thing when somebody retires. If somebody goes and let's say they retire before age 60, that would also make them eligible to do the rollover out of the TSP or a portion of the monies out of the TSP and place it into customized IRAs that will work for the individual's needs and the individual's goals. So what are some of the problems with this federal government retirement? And first I want to go over the pension options. And this is something that I talk about the story with my grandfather. He was offered a pension plan. He wasn't a federal employee. He worked for the city of New York, so it was more of a municipality. But he did have a pension option. And the story goes that he was walking out the door. He signed the form that said for single life only option. And my grandma asked him, what's that form in your hand? He's like, oh, I just already, fill out the pension thing because we're going to be retiring soon. And she's like, well, why did you choose single life? So there was a whole fight that basically took place because she was nervous. She didn't work. He was the only breadwinner of the family. And by choosing a single life option, that meant that the income from the pension plan would stop whenever he passed away and there'd be nothing left over to beneficiaries. So what he did was he ended up switching it, because obviously she won the argument. They ended up switching it to a joint life option, meaning that they were receiving X amount of dollars per month And he unfortunately passed away really young. He passed away at age 69, and she ended up living into her 80s. And they were only about a year apart from each other, where it made tons of mathematical sense for them to choose the joint life option, because she would have been completely screwed if he would have passed away at 69 and they were getting this slightly higher benefit for those first couple of years when he retired, and then all that income would have stopped when he passed away. So that's why the joint life option is very important. So that's the thing, is you just want to make sure that you're choosing wisely, and you're considering, you're not trying to think you're Superman and saying, oh, well, I'm going to live forever. Well, take a step back and see, okay, what's most important to you? What happens if you don't live forever? What happens if, God forbid, you do have an ailment that comes about? Do you want to make sure that only you are covered, or that you and your spouse are covered? So sometimes it makes mathematical sense to utilize the single life option. Sometimes it makes mathematical sense to leverage the joint life option. It really just depends upon really yours and your spouse's age, yours and your spouse's health, and and then ultimately what your expenses are, and what your ultimately what your goals are for your retirement. The other problems that I touched up on before was if you're trying to retire before age 60. And individuals think that they have to leave their money in the thrift savings plan. If they're retiring before age 60, they can't touch those monies. There's ways on how you could leverage specific portions to leave within that thrift savings plan, where you could ultimately leverage the thrift savings plan as a laddering strategy. So like, as an example, let's say if somebody wants to retire and they're 56 years old and they understand that they're not quite 60 yet, 56, 57, 58, 59, and then at age 60, they could utilize qualified related accounts, like leveraging from like an IRA type process. And let's say that this person has a specific gap of $25,000 per year. Well, they could go and leave $100,000 in this hypothetical example in a thrift savings plan at age 56, and then draw down $25,000 at age 56 from this thrift savings plan, $25,000 at age 57, $25,000 at age 58, $25,000 at age 59. And this would obviously liquidate all of the thrift savings plan monies. But then at age 60, when they made this move, maybe the thrift savings plan at age 56 was originally sitting at like $600,000. And they took $500,000 and they placed that in with an IRA or multiple IRAs through a rollover, so that this was able to accrue properly for these last 4 years. And then they could trigger a cash flow related strategy with an IRA at age 60. They could utilize the growth related strategy with that leftover IRA at age 60. So there's a lot of really neat things you could do, but be mindful that with an IRA, you have something known as 59.5 rules, meaning that you cannot take withdrawals from IRA accounts before age 59.5, or else you get dinged with a 10% penalty through the IRS. So you get hit with full taxation and a 10% penalty. So that's where you just want to be very careful with how you're setting up this type of strategy. But there's a lot of flexibility that you could use on a withdrawal component, and then also on a max growth component. So it's all about understanding, being educated on what these strategies are, what that process is, to make the best informed decision that will put you in the best position. One of the other things I mentioned is after age 60. So after age 60, if somebody's still working there, they have access to the in-service rollovers, the in-service withdrawals, where it would make more sense to go and place that into an IRA. And like, why do I keep mentioning this? Is with a thrift savings plan, the good things about it is somebody is placing monies aside, just like a 401k. They're placing monies aside into this account. So every month or bi-weekly, weekly, whenever they're getting paid, they could take a percentage of their salary and place it into a type of retirement savings vehicle. This is meant for retirement, for you really, in your late 50s, early 60s, late 60s, whatever that case might be. The way on how this bucket grows is by the contributions and the rate of return. So if somebody goes and places $10,000 into this thrift savings plan in the year, and there was no rate of return that came back, their account balance, let's just say it was at $0 before, would be sitting at $10,000. Let's say the next year they put in $10,000. That next year it would be sitting at $20,000 if there was no rate of return. If, let's say, there was a rate of return of 10% and the account balance was sitting at $20,000, between the combination off of what the account balance is looking at plus the 10%, this new account value would grow to $22,000 because $2,000 was of interest. So now that's basically sitting in this person's bucket. If this rate of return comes back negative, and let's just say for math purposes, the market crashed and this account lost 50% from the rate of return side, it didn't matter how much money they placed into the account that year. This negative from the rate of return side, this was a hindrance on their account. So let's just say they didn't put any contribution into this account the third year, and they experienced a minus 50% drop from their account would have went from 22,000 to 11,000. So be mindful that this rate of return is only as good as the investments that you're choosing, only as good as if you're looking at everything minus the G fund. So like a G fund is the guaranteed fund. That's the basically the fixed account that you could choose with the thrift savings plan. But let's say if you're going with with a C fund, or you're going with an S fund, that's going to ebb and flow with how the market is performing. So if the market goes down, your account's going to go down in value because of this negative that's sitting there. If the market goes up, this account is going to be going up. So this is the reason why somebody would leverage an IRA and do a rollover from a thrift savings plan to an IRA account, is because with an IRA, let's say if you go and you roll over, let's say the thrift savings plan was sitting at $100,000. Well, you know that this thrift savings plan grows by the contributions the person's making and the rate of return. If this person is no longer working for the federal government, well then, and they're leaving it in their savings plan, they're going to have to rely on those limited funding options. Those about 10 to 15, 10 to 20 different options to choose from. When you have an IRA account, and let's say this person went and they rolled the monies over into the IRA, conceptually think of that rollover like a contribution, even though it's a transfer, it's a rollover. So it's going from a qualified account to a qualified account. That's one side. That dumps the $100,000 into the bucket. And now this rate of return, if you're setting up with custom IRAs, you have anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 different options to choose from of investments. You could have high quality, low cost. You could really diversify this out properly and have better consistency on this rate of return than the 10 to 20 eggs in your basket to choose from when you're leveraging the thrift savings plan, and only those limited investment opportunities. So also with IRAs, you could customize that with different annuity accounts. So you could have them set up for like hybrid related annuities that will trigger lifetime income streams when you hit a specific age based upon the deferral when you're looking to retire. Safe accumulation related accounts that gain when the market goes up, doesn't lose when the market goes down. So there's a lot of really neat features you could do with that. So you could customize everything with IRAs. You can't customize that. You're more restricted when it's just sitting in that TSP. Now be mindful the TSP is still fine. And even at age 60, if you're eligible for an in-service rollover, let's say if you had $500,000 as an example that's sitting in your thrift savings plan, and you say, okay, I'm still going to be working for these next 5 years. I want to go and roll this money over into an IRA so that it's at least or multiple IRAs so that it's accumulating properly. Well, if you're age 60 right now, you're still going to be working for the next 5 years. So that means that, yes, your TSP account value will go back down to $0 because you preserved this, you rolled it over into an IRA or multiple IRAs, but now going forward, every pay period or every month, you're adding contributions and then also rate of return. So it's not a hindrance by doing the rollover. You're still going to be able to make contributions to the thrift savings plan even after you've leveraged your rollover opportunity because you're still working in this example because you didn't want to retire, after the fact. So there's a lot of really neat features you could do, a lot of flexibility you could do, but you just have to be mindful that it is possible. And this is something that would really help individuals out, is figuring out what your retirement expenses are. So really doing a budgeting analysis and saying, okay, what are your current expenses right now? What are your projected retirement expenses going to be? So let's say you have 10 years left to pay off your house and you're 55 right now, you want to retire at age 67. Well, your house is going to get paid off within 10 years. So then that's going to be an expense that might be an expense today, but it's not going to be expense other than taxes at the time that you're hitting age 67. So, there's a lot of little nice nuances that, by leveraging yourself, leveraging your organization to really understand, okay, what is your current point A? What is your point B, your ideal retirement date? And then how to make sure you're going from point A to point B effectively, efficiently, and then from point B until date of death effectively and efficiently, making sure that you're following certain parameters, you're following, different processes and actually creating a plan, not just creating a portfolio, not just hoping that everything's going to work out, but actually knowing everything's going to work out regardless of the market environment, regardless if the market's going down, the market's going sideways, and the market's going up, how to optimize your areas every which way because of the benefits that you're eligible for. And as an example, one of the things that we trademarked is the retirement diet plan. And the diet in the retirement diet plan that's really the most important acronym is DIET. Stands for distribution, investments, estate, and taxation. So the most crucial step with any financial plan is making sure that you have more than enough income sources when you retire, when you fully stop working. So a large portion of really what benefits federal employees is they have cash flows. They have cash flows from pension plans, they have cash flows from Social Security supplements, and then also from Social Security income when that does kick in. If let's say there's a gap between what the expenses are and then what the actual cash flows are bringing in, then there's different strategies, different tricks on how to, or techniques on how to suffice those gaps by utilizing the thrift savings plan, by making sure you're rolling it over into customized IRAs that will supplement that income. Now, whatever you don't use towards this during this distribution phase, then you can move on to the investment/growth related phase, such as investment/growth related planning. Let's say, and this is for more of your ancillary dollars. If let's say you want to try to accumulate or hedge your bet against inflation, or just try to grow monies and say, oh, anytime I have a good growth year, we're gonna me and my spouse are gonna go on an extra trip this year, or we're gonna go visit grandkids, and this is what we see as our ideal retirement need. So how do you make sure that all your excess monies that's growing properly? That's something we go off of nothing known as a REEF method, so that you're matching up your risk tolerance that is appropriate to what you really see as from a growth perspective. To utilize safe accumulation related accounts, aggressive investment related accounts, whatever that case might be. The next phase goes into the estate/legacy planning. So this is saying, okay, well, whatever we don't use up, I want to make sure that this is being left over to my children or my grandchildren in an effective way, to create some sort of legacy plan or legacy play. It could also be leaving it to your spouse. So you want to make sure that you're looking at all those opportunities. And then T is taxation. Does it make sense to do a rollover? Does it make sense to just take the withdrawals now? How do you take withdrawals now without getting dinged with certain penalties? So does it make sense to do conversions, Roth conversions with these monies, because it will help out with Social Security taxation later on, or just your retirement income taxation later on. So, this is really the steps, the process that we set up with individual situations, making sure that you could leverage, especially for federal employees, that they could leverage their chips the correct way and make sure that they have that ideal retirement situation met. So I hope that all of this makes sense. I hope you found value in this video. If you did find value, feel free to give our 1-800 number a call. And you want to speak to a specialist, give our 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002. Hit the like button, leave a comment, leave a question, and we'll be sure to try to help answer the best we can. You could also go to our website, which is going to be, the link is going to be in the description of this video. This is afosifinancial.com, or you could type in retiresharp.com, and it goes over our process, shows you how you could leverage, speaking with us on a phone consultation. We do the Zoom meetings, making sure that you have the comfort of your own home to really, understand things and become educated first and foremost, and see whether or not the retirement diet plan might be a fit for your specific situation. At the very bottom, we have our digital calendar, so you could set up a convenient time for you, a good date and time for you to have a specialist reach out to you, and and go from there. But once again, I hope you found value in this. Feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel Retire Sharp, so you can have access to the most updated videos. Thanks so much, guys.